Gambit does not agree with how you think about Dark Phoenix. Do you, Gambit? It's a cool toy. Yeah, Dark Phoenix. I am really disappointed in humanity right now. The best X-Men movie ever comes out and everyone just says it's trash. I mean, there are so many YouTubers and stuff and people on Twitter who are just like, ugh, can't believe I just went and saw that dumpster fire. Well, at least X-Men 3 had a plot. Wow, can't believe that weird alien bad guy. She didn't need to be there. Why was Magneto there? To be fair, Magneto didn't need to be there. But I went to this movie expecting the worst because the critics were saying, stuff like it was horrible and stuff, and I absolutely loved it. I thought the film was amazing. I thought the performances were great. Uh, maybe minus Jennifer Lawrence. I think she's pretty done with being spray painted blue and stuff. And I thought the story was amazing. It wasn't necessarily like a good ending for the X-Men, but it was a very good X-Men film. But almost everyone on the internet thinks it's the worst thing to happen since, well, literally it's the worst thing to happen to the X-Men franchise. They're just ripping it to shreds, saying it's the worst X-Men film ever, and I can't disagree more. But this is not a review of the film. This is actually kind of like a Pixar theory video, except it's not really a Pixar and it's not really a theory either. It's kind of like where I debunk plot holes. That's a thing. That's totally a thing. Debunking plot holes, proving plot holes wrong, myth busting, plot hole busting. Gambit, what is it called? I don't know. But yeah, one of the biggest complaints of this film is that the continuity doesn't match up with the other films. Well, first of all, it's the X-Men series. The continuity hasn't made sense since First Class. Attack! Yeah, it really hasn't. Nothing makes sense anymore. Characters that appear in one film that's set in the 60s suddenly appear in a different film that's set in, the 90s, but they're 20 years younger, and obviously that didn't specifically happen. But believe me, First Class had, what's her face? The woman who could turn into, diamonds. What is her name? I swear, Emma Frost. Her name's Emma Frost, right? Had Emma Frost, this fully grown woman who, runs around and is a bad guy in First Class. A movie set in the 60s. Except X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is set in the 70s, features a teenage version of her. So let that sit for a moment and let you think about how well the X-Men continuity matches up. But suddenly this film comes out and it's horrible. It's like, it doesn't match up anymore. Maybe I'm overplaying that a little bit. Most people don't really care that much, but it kind of bothers me how many people hated this movie. So I kind of want to just stick it to them, at least in one area. The area where I think I can actually make these plot holes work. Now, the thing of it is, I didn't do this on purpose. I was just thinking about, some of the plot holes. Spoilers, by the way, because obviously these plot holes are spoilers. I was thinking about them, and I wasn't even thinking about how to debunk them. I was just thinking about them, and I was like, well, that could work, if this and this happened. And the next thing I knew, I wanted to do a video debunking theories, debunking plot holes, whatever they're called. You must be really annoyed out of your skin at this point, so I'm just going to start. I did not make any notes. I should have made notes. I'll pretend that there are notes on the back of the zebra cake thing. No, I won't. That's stupid. I should have made notes because I did have a few things to say. Basically, I'm just going to go over several of the points that people complain about this movie, which doesn't make sense. And I'm basically going to tell you why I think it doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to call the video why X-Men Dark Phoenix actually fits in the X-Men timeline, or something along that lines, which I guess it would be more accurate to call it why it could fit, but that's not really going to get people to watch this, is it? Although, to be fair, my content's very awful. Maybe that's why they're not watching it. Quality! Yeah. Okay. So, So, what was the first point? The first point being, how come Jean got the Dark Phoenix Force in this movie? In X-Men Apocalypse, which was the X-Men film set in the 80s, and chronologically is the film before this one, Jean Grey unleashes the Force buried inside her to destroy the mutant known as Apocalypse. As she's doing so, it turns into this like phoenix shape, she's screeching like a bird, and she kills Apocalypse. And so at the end of that movie, everyone was like, oh wow, the Phoenix, wow, that's really cool. But in this movie, Jean Grey's in outer space trying to help astronauts, from dying. She's trying to help them from dying. And this cosmic space force enters her while she's trying to save everyone else. And now fans are sitting there and they're like, wait a minute. Wait. She had the Phoenix Force before this movie. So why is the Phoenix Force entering her now? That's understandably a bit confusing. She was clearly shown to have the Phoenix Force in Apocalypse, but now suddenly the Phoenix Force is coming in Dark Phoenix? This doesn't really make sense, except maybe it does. See, here's the thing. If you look back at X-Men The Last Stand, Charles Xavier basically says that Jean has another personality, known as the Phoenix. Now, obviously, X-Men 3 didn't happen due to the events in Days of Future Past. I mean, it did happen at one point, but it's like if you write an answer down in your test sheet and then you erase it. You did write that answer down, but you erased it and now it's not there anymore. However, we can assume that at least the timeline is going to be similar, because Professor X is the same person, and Jean Grey is probably going to have similar problems. And as we saw in the Dark Phoenix, Charles Xavier put up walls inside Jean's mind. And when this cosmic alien force enters Jean, they start to break down, she starts to question herself, and she starts to go insane. Which is pretty similar to what happens in X-Men The Last Stand, if I'm not mistaken. I actually haven't seen the film, believe it or not. I literally have not seen X-Men The Last Stand. I'm a criminal. I haven't even seen the first X-Men. I've only seen X-Men 2. But, well, the point I'm trying to get is, no one ever calls the force in outer space the Phoenix Force, as far as I'm aware. If they did, this whole video is pointless. No one ever called it the Phoenix Force. They called it a cosmic force, they called it a creator of life, but no one actually called it the Phoenix Force. And as far as I know, it never actually takes the form of a phoenix until it enters Jean. My theory is that Jean really did have the Phoenix inside her all along, and she did have the potential to become the Phoenix by the end of this series. However, this cosmic force sped things up along and made her become the more of a Phoenix that we know from the comics. So in conclusion, the question, how come Jean had the Phoenix in the movie before this, but now the Phoenix enters her space? The answer is, she had the Phoenix all along, and in this universe, the cosmic space force is more of an accelerant, aiding the Phoenix Force. I hate the Speed Force. DC Comics. That is the stupidest thing you've ever done. Don't quote me on that. Alright, another big question. Why was Magneto in this movie? I don't know. I can't answer you. Why does he look like he's 23? Well, he doesn't. But, he doesn't look like he's 63, and I can't answer that either. Let's see, let me think. The other thing. This one's not nearly as good as the other one. Like, I put a lot of effort into the one before, and I thought, man, that's so good. I should, become a psychologist or something. I can, analyze a person's past and just, figure them out. But this one's more well, think about it. So I'm kind of making stuff up, but I think it makes sense. So obviously, if you've seen Days of Future Past, Jean Grey is shown alive and well, along in what is presumably a happy relationship with Scott Summers. X-Men 3 was wiped away, so she's fine. Logan never killed her. Again, erase the pencil on your... never mind. But in the end of this movie, spoiler alert, Jean gives up the ghost. Yeah, she kind of just disintegrates and becomes this phoenixy thing that flies across the sky, and that was honestly kind of the point where it lost me. But to be fair, it was the last 5 minutes of the film, so I'm glad it was just the 5 minutes. Just oh, bye, Jean. So long. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty disappointing for our main character. And of course, a question is, well, how come she's dead? How can she be dead when she's alive and well in Days of Future Past? To be killed off in Logan, no less. I can't answer the Logan question. I don't think that film really has a good story to tell, to be honest. I don't like Logan. But I think I can at least theorize as to how Jean Grey is alive in Days of Future Past. The Phoenix Force, or at least the cosmic force that enters Jean, becoming the Phoenix Force, is described by the alien leader as, a giver of life. It creates life. So that combined with Jean's power, I think it would make sense that Jean would be able to, after several decades, it was set in the 90s, and when was Future Past set? I don't remember. Comment if you know. It was set a couple of decades afterward, so, Jean is not dead. She's evolved into something else. If she wanted to, I don't think it's I don't think it's impossible for her to have created a new body for herself. I think that is totally plausible. So as I said before, it's not really like a theory I picked up with facts. It's more like something where it's like, well, if you take this and this, you could get this. Yeah, I'm going with. So the answer to the question, how can Jean be alive in Days of Future Past when she perished at the end of Dark Phoenix? The answer is, I think that she could have used the Phoenix Force to simply create a new body for her. I think that could happen. I think that could happen. That's why I made the whole video. And I'm sorry if you keep hearing a sound like that. You're actually hitting the Dark Phoenix tin. Yeah, the Dark Phoenix tin. I really like that tin. It's a nice tin. You can't really... There we go. It's a nice tin. It's a really, really nice tin. Those were really the only 2 points I had. Everything else is just kind of like random gibberish stuff. I feel like I might have seen this once or twice, and I'm sorry if I'm just putting words in people's mouth, but they seemed kind of confused as to how this can line up with X-Men 1. The answer is it doesn't, because as I said, events were changed at the end of Days of Future Past. And I'm really sorry for this whole video, actually, because I feel like throughout the whole thing that I've just been coming across as a know-it-all, and I feel like several things that came out of my mouth weren't that factual. If they weren't, I apologize. And also, if I made a blatant mistake or outright lied, if I did, please call me out on it. I'm really sorry. I have very good intentions when I'm making a video, but then it's like I can't really get it out the way I want it to. So if I did it wrong, or if you just thought I was annoying, be sure to subscribe. I really need subscribers. I need more subscribers. I need subscribers. I did this joke last time, but I am so lonely. Is that even really a joke? I don't know. Support Dark Phoenix, you guys. It is way better than people are giving it credit for. I really like Dark Phoenix, and this is why Dark Phoenix actually fits with the timeline of the X-Men. And that is what I'm going to name it. I'm going to name it It Fits, even though it should be named